Good evening and welcome to the 11th edition of our webinar. The webinar is called LIVRESQ Empower Your Teaching, and if it's your first time here, it's basically a webinar where we teach you about LIVRESQ, our tool for creating interactive online lessons. And we're also here to answer your questions and to make sure we get your feedback in real time regarding using our tool, and also letting you know about the updates that we keep adding to our tool so that you're always up to date with what LIVRESQ can do. So without further ado, we're here tonight to talk about how to use different tools for guiding progress, because when you create a lesson in LIVRESQ, you can also we have some tools that you can use, some interactive tools that you can use to help you guide the progress of the participants, of your students, which basically means that you can restrict them from moving forward inside the lesson unless they complete a certain resource, or unless they interact with content. But you can also add explanations. We have what is called a virtual assistant or avatar or message. So you can add different messages that can instruct the student on what to do, exactly, essentially, actually, like a virtual teacher. So this is what I'm going to tell you tonight. So this is what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. And to begin with, I'm going to stop sharing the image and share my screen to show you LIVRESQ. Just a second. Here we go. So now you're able to see the tool, the homepage of the tool. And I'm actually going to start sort of from the beginning by creating a project using AI. And we've demonstrated this before. This has been recently added to LIVRESQ, actually this year, the ability to create an entire project using artificial intelligence. And essentially what you can do is just tell the platform what you need your lesson or your project to be about. We call lessons projects, essentially. And then you just add a few parameters, and you are able to create, and sort of the platform gives you a lesson that you can then edit. It has different elements, and they're very, very easy to edit, and it's also very easy to add other elements. So the project I'm going to use to show you avatars and barriers tonight is generated using AI, and we're gonna go step by step with that as well, just to make sure that everything is clear. So in order to create a new project, we are here home in the author. It's worth mentioning that you can only create a project using artificial intelligence if you have a premium account. So this is a premium feature, and actually everything that has to do with AI and generating text or generating lessons is premium. And if you want to create a lesson using AI, you will need to add in some information. So first of all, you need to provide the platform with the title of your lesson. And this time, let's try creating a lesson about the solar system, something very general. The solar system. This is my title. Then I need to add the duration of the lesson. Initially, the platform provides you with 20 minutes or so, or it sort of creates content. It creates a structure for a 20 minutes lesson. But you can add or subtract as much as you want from this according to what you need the lesson to be. Then the subject. The subject can be the school object or the actual subject of the lesson, which essentially means that you can create lessons for school, but you can also create lessons on anything. And that's why we didn't really say school object. Right now, of course, since we're demonstrating a lesson for children, we're going to write geography here. Let's say the age should be around 12. We want the tone to be happy. Here again, you can write whatever you want. Maybe if you want to create a lesson for adults, you want the tone to be more professional. But for children, let's just go with happy. We'll leave the project language to English, of course, since This is the language we're working in, but you can choose between a lot of languages. We keep saying all languages because so far we haven't had any requests that we weren't able to generate, to integrate, essentially. So there's a long list of languages you can choose from. We'll leave it at English. And let's say I want the lesson to feature some information about the sun, some information about the planets of the solar system, then maybe also some fun facts. What we mean by keywords is actually some information that allows the platform to provide you with the sort of structure you're looking for, because the solar system is a very sort of general title, and I wanted to sort of give it a few keywords, a few clues about what I want the lesson to be. And then I also wanted to suggest, I want it to suggest to me some multimedia content. And then I click generate. And initially, it doesn't provide us with a lesson, it provides us with a table of contents. So sort of like a structure or a skeleton of the lesson. And we will see the titles on the screen, so the titles of each chapter and subchapter, and then the times that the platform consider, or the AI system actually in this case, featured in the platform, considers, dedicates to each of these chapters. And here I can delete, or I can just click generate and it will generate a completely new project using this structure. And right now, I'll just click generate and let it work. Sometimes it can take a little bit, but I've actually played with this a little bit earlier. So if we go into resources, I already have this project that the platform created, project called the solar system. And if I double click in LIVRESQ, if you want to edit something, you double click, and if you want to select something, you use the single click. So if I double click this project, I'm able to edit it. It automatically features a section 1, named automatically. The section in LIVRESQ is kind of like a page or an organizational, sort of the way you want to organize your lesson. So an organizational unit, it can be a chapter, it can be a page or a subchapter. Essentially, it's a unit of organization. And again, if I double click my main section, I'm able to look to see the lesson that the platform has created. So far, we only have one template for AI generated lessons, so they will always look similar to one another, but we will add very soon, we'll add more templates. You'll be able to choose, they'll look slightly different. And essentially what we can see here is an entirely generated project. I've only provided the platform with the information you saw initially. So we have the title, a few keywords, then this text is generated using AI. You can change it and generate more text, or you can rephrase it. And then these are suggestions for when to add images, placeholders essentially for images, for accordions. We have a video here, a gallery, quizzes, and different interactive resources. We don't yet generate interactive resources, we just generate text and structure, but soon you'll be able to generate images and the entire lesson as well. So right now, if you liked the structure, if you found it useful, you can just double click anything and edit, add more elements, and then your lesson is done. We've even had a test from a teacher who was able to create a lesson in around 10 minutes. So just by adding a few bits and pieces of information, maybe adding a quiz, changing a few things in the structure, and then you have a completely interactive and fun lesson for your students. Now, our main topic for tonight, as I mentioned in the beginning, is tools that we can use to guide the student. And in LIVRESQ, we mainly use two types of resources to guide the progress of the student inside a lesson. And these are the avatar, or the virtual assistant, and the barrier. And we're going to start with the virtual assistant. It's more spectacular, if you will. It's more like a virtual teacher. It's like an extension of the teacher that can not only sort of guide the student, not only prevent the student from moving forward unless they complete a certain resource, unless they interact with content. But the avatar or the virtual teacher can also explain things. And we'll see how much we can do with the avatar. And also we'll talk about placement, how we can change the text, how we can generate voices for the avatar, and all those useful, wonderful things. And in fact, I decided to start again with a generated project because we already have avatars added to the project. So this is generated with the AI. And if we go into view mode, the little eye that allows us to see what our students will see, then we're able to see, we are welcomed actually to the course by this virtual assistant. Who says, welcome to the course. He doesn't say anything because we didn't generate a voice for him, but we'll make him say something in a bit. And right now I can't see anything else from the lesson. I need to click continue on his little speech bubble. If I click continue, he says, here are the key points of this course. Doesn't actually say it, it's just written on the screen. And then I need to click continue again to reveal the key points of the course. And because we don't have any other avatars, then the lesson is just revealed. But we can keep adding avatars explaining each and every piece of information that we want to show our students. So if we exit view mode, but by clicking again on the little eye, we know we're in view mode because when we click it, it becomes blue. So I'm back to editing, and the avatar, I can't really see him. I just see him here in the left corner, but it's actually this little speech icon, the purple speech icon. And here, if I click on it once, then on the right-hand side, I can see its properties, and this is where I can edit everything to do with the avatar. But apart from the avatar itself, we'll learn how to change, maybe add a different character here after we sort of finish talking about the avatar and seeing how we can interact with it and how we can use it inside our section or inside our page. So essentially, it's the speech resource added to the lesson in certain points. And if I click it once, I am able to edit it on the right-hand side. It's sort of an exception to the rule that you need to double click something only in LIVRESQ to edit it. Here, you just click it once and you edit it from the properties. Now, here you can change things that have to do with the graphics or the colors of the avatar, the colors of the button, essentially. We'll just leave it to inherit, which means it inherits the properties of the entire project for the entire lesson. We can change its background color if we want. Make it green. We'll just leave it at white. And here in content, we can write whatever we want. So this is where we actually write the instructions for our students. So instead of welcome to the course, we can say hello and welcome. And right now, we have a different text and we have him welcoming. The bubble, we can also select different types of bubbles. We have the normal one. It's set on auto, and auto means that it will go to the normal one. We can select a thought bubble. We can select a burst if we want him to shout something, or we can select a whisper bubble. And if we go to configure here, we can sort of change the size and configure a little bit more about the speech bubble. If you don't like the way it looks, or if you want to make some subtle changes, you can do it here. Now, the most important thing about the avatar is that we can make him talk. It's not just about writing a message on the screen in his or hers or in their speech bubble, but we can also add sound to them. We can make them speak. So here we have three options. If we go to sound change, we can either upload an MP3 file of a recording. We can generate text to speech. So we can generate sound, we can generate its voice if we have a premium account, and we can also record ourselves. So upload works in a very simple way. We just click upload, and then we select the photo from our computer. a photo, sorry, a file from our computer. I didn't have any MP3 file, so I just closed it. MP3 works. You just upload the audio. If we want to generate, then we click on generate and we have this text to speech pop up where we can select again a language, and we have all languages, as I was saying in the beginning. You can select a voice. For American English especially, we have a lot of voices. So these are voices both from Microsoft and Google. So you have a really large selection of voices. And generally all languages have at least a male and a female voice. And then we can also select the speed or the pitch, so we can change the pitch. If you are familiar with text-to-speech and if you want to use SSML, you can also edit code if you want. But in a simple way, if we just click generate,
Hello and welcome.
we have the avatar speaking to us. We've generated the sound. Please let me know in the chat maybe if you were able to hear that. I think I shared sound, but were you able to hear the voice saying hello and welcome? The Ava voice in English for American English. Perfect. So now I click save. And if I go back to view,
Hello and welcome.
then I hear the voice. Of course, I selected a female voice. I have a male avatar. I can go to generate again, and I can select a male voice. Let's select Andrew. For some voices, especially for English, let me see if I can give one. We can also change the style of the voice. So there's really a lot of playing you can do with generating sound in LIVRESQ. So you can make him sound like a newscast. You can make him sound angry, cheerful, sad, excited. Let's try with excited and generate hello and welcome.
Hello and welcome.
He was a bit too excited, maybe. Just friendly.
Hello and welcome.
Here we go. We'll save. And then if we go in view,
hello and welcome,
the avatar starts automatically. Other things you can change apart from the assistant, because I'll show you in a minute how we add more assistants. We can have 2 per project that can appear. So if I had another assistant added to the project, this is where I would select one or the other. And I can also change its posture. So if I don't want him to speak, to say anything, I can select idle and he won't move. Because when you add an avatar, and we'll see that in a bit, you can also add of certain postures. So not just speaking, not just idle. These are the 2 basic ones we generally use. You can add him jumping. These are just small animations that you can play around with and add. We'll just leave him on speaking because he is actually speaking. And special activation we'll see in a minute. So essentially what matters in avatars, once you know how to use them, how to add their speech bubble and how to generate voices and add sound to them, we didn't even really go into the record a bit because it's just a tool that allows you to record your voice, and then your voice will be heard inside the lesson as the avatar speaks. So back to the avatar. You can, once you've added the content and the sound, if you want to use sound with it, played around with the bubble a little bit, it's very important to know where to place the resource because that determines when the avatar will appear. And the rule is really simple. If we place it in the top left corner of a resource, then it will appear before that resource. And if we place it in the bottom left corner of a resource, then it appears simultaneous with that resource. So at the same time, top before, bottom at the same time. And in order to add an avatar, we just take it from the content on the left-hand side and we place it wherever we need it. So because I placed an avatar on the top corner here, it will appear before my resource. But let's look at it when we have an interactive resource or maybe something that is easier to see. I'll delete him and add another one. I'll just take the speech bubble or the avatar, the virtual assistant, from my content on the left and add it to the top left corner of this image. This means that what should happen When I preview, for instance, just this row, we don't need to preview the entire project. So I'll just click on row. My avatar appears before the image. I need to click continue for the image to appear. By the way you saw me do this, you can move the avatar around when you're in view mode. So your students, if they're on a bigger screen, are able to move the avatar around. If they're on a smaller screen, the avatar will always appear at the bottom. So on a phone, essentially, it will always appear on the bottom. We have different types of elements inside of the LIVRESQ page. So if you've never seen it before, I'll just go through this very, very quickly. So we have rows, we have cells inside rows, and we can have multiple cells inside a row. They're kind of like columns. And the resources, text, the content is added inside a cell. So essentially where I place my avatar, it doesn't really matter. I can place him on a row, in a cell, or on a resource. It just matters which corner or which position, top or bottom. You saw that if I placed him at the top, he appeared before my image. If I place him on the bottom for just this image, and I preview this row, so I've selected the row and then I have the little eye here, I can preview the row, he will appear simultaneous with my image. So top, before, bottom, simultaneous. If I preview the entire project.
Hello and welcome.
I've asked him to speak, that's what he said. Okay. And then he appeared with everything, obviously, because he is set to run. So the course, once you add avatars, your course or your lesson will run from avatar to avatar, which means that everything went down until I added another avatar. He is there to guide the student. You should not leave content inside a lesson without an avatar. Top, before, bottom at the same time with the lesson. So for instance, the logical thing to add in this lesson would be the avatar. So we start with the avatar welcoming the student to the lesson. Then we have the avatar that announces that we will see sort of the contents of the lesson, the key points of the lesson. And then I'll delete this one here. We'll add an avatar at the bottom of this row. So it will appear at the same time as this row, in which we explain what the lesson is about. So what is already on the screen. Today, we will talk about the solar system. We can generate the voice using change generate, and we'll use the same male voice.
Today we will talk about the solar system.
There we go. And now it's the
Hello and
logical
welcome.
progression of the lesson. We didn't generate a voice for this one, announcing the key points.
Today we will talk about the solar system.
And the virtual assistant appears. The next one we've generated a voice for, so he explains what is on the screen. I keep using he because it's actually this male character over here. Now, what I didn't show you in settings is hide the sound player, which is very self-explanatory. If we select this, then there is no more sound player here. It's all about preference, whether you want the sound player to remain on the avatar or not. If you want the student to be able to play it again, they can use this as an option. And special activation is used when the avatar announces an interactive resource. So let me show you what I mean. This is an accordion. It's an interactive resource. Let's preview the row for a little bit without any avatars. Every time I click on a title, I can see more content. It's interactive, and we call it interactive because the student needs to do something. It won't progress, and he or she, they won't be able to progress inside the lesson if they don't click, if they don't interact with the accordion. So if I add an avatar that appears at the same time as my interactive resource, then I want him to explain to the student what to do in this situation. And if I don't take this option, then the continue button will be on the avatar. Let me show you just a second what happens if I say, click on each title, for instance, click on each title, reveal the information. We won't generate the voice. This is just to show you how it works. So right now the avatar doesn't appear on this row because this is an interactive resource. Let's select 2 rows and then click
Hello and welcome.
view, sorry. And we'll click preview from up here. If you don't tick special activation, because we already have a button, an interactive button on the avatar, the system or the platform understands that you don't need him to appear at the same time as the interactive resource. So if I click special activation, it will appear at the same time as my interactive resource. It won't have the continue button, which means that the student needs to complete interacting or to continue to finish interacting with my resource in order to continue. So essentially, what the avatar does is guiding the student. If we don't tick special activation, there will always be a button, a continue button on the avatar. If we do, so if we want to add it to an interactive resource, then it will appear after the interactive resource. If we want to use the avatar in order to give the student information about interactive resources, then it's always a must to tick this. So adding it simultaneous to an interactive resource requires us ticking special activation so that it acts as a way to explain to the student what to do, and it allows the student to move on if they finish interacting with that piece of content, essentially. So just to give you an idea, again, I'll select 2 rows using control, and then I can preview just these 2 rows using this button up here. The avatar tells me, well, not actually tells me, but it's written on the screen to click on each title to reveal the information. And then once I finish clicking, I can see more of the lesson. I've just selected this, so that's everything I can see. It's a little bit complicated, or it's not really complicated, but it's complex because we want to allow you to use the avatar as efficiently as possible, really as a virtual teacher. So that's why we've sort of changed. That's why we're allowing you to choose where to place him according to what you want to explain on the screen or to the moment you want him to appear. And that's why you also have this special activation that you should tick if you place him on interactive resources. So I'll just go over everything really quickly again. In order to add a virtual assistant to a lesson, we take him from content here and we add him to the lesson, him or any other image that we'll see in a minute how to change. And according to the position, the avatar will appear at a certain point in the lesson or on an element. If we place the avatar on the top left corner, then it will appear before that element, be it row, cell, or resource. If we place it on the bottom left, then it will appear at the same time with that element. Also important is to tick special activation if we have an avatar placed to appear at the same time, so bottom left as an interactive resource. So because otherwise it won't show the instruction, it won't show together with the interactive resource. So this is essentially the avatar. Please let me know if you have questions up to this point. What we're going to look at next is how to change the character of the avatar. So how to change the virtual assistant, how to add maybe a different image or different animations. I'm looking both inside in Facebook and in the chat in Zoom, and there are no questions, which is a good thing, I hope. If you have any questions, if you're not watching us live and you're catching us on YouTube later, you can ask the questions in the comments and we'll get back to you, no problem. So let's get back to it. In order to change this little guy, maybe you don't like him, maybe you don't like his shirt or his tie, we need to go back to the general settings of the project. So if we click the title of the project, we are now in the general settings of the project, and we need to go into assistance. We've never done this for this webinar, so it's really exciting. And if we go under assistance, it's very similar to what it looks like in sections, but here we can see we have one assistant. And again, to edit something, we need to double click it. If we double clicked our assistant, so now we're in the project, the solar system, and we can see our assistant automatically named assistant 1. We have this preset assistant that you will always see on all projects in LIVRESQ, whom you can change. If you want to keep him and maybe add another assistant, you can have 2 assistants inside a project. We can go back and add a new assistant by using this button up here. So let's first try this. We add a new assistant. It's number 4 because I played around before this meeting. That's why the platform named him assistant number 4. We double click to see him. It's the same one, obviously, but this is where we can change. So I'm not changing the first one, I'm changing the second one so that maybe we can keep 2. If we click on change posture, we can upload a different assistant from our computer. Now I have an animated assistant here, again in 2 postures, idle. I'll add him. He looks a bit different. And I also have a speaking animation for him. So this is a completely different assistant. You can download different types of animations from various websites. This is sort of like the more professional, but we'll see that we can add static assistants as well. If you have a more complex animation and you want to add more postures, you can use add item here and again change posture and add the archive containing the animation. Now the problem here, this little target marker here shows the point from which the speech bubble starts. So we're just going to move this because this will look weird inside my project. I want him to start from around his mouth, for instance. Here it's covering his face. It's his face, so I'll move it again around here, or maybe move it up here so I can make sure it's not covering anything. And essentially what I did is add another assistant. If I go back to the project, go into my section, to the assistants I've already added, maybe I want this one to be my other assistant. And here I can select it using a single click. I go to the right-hand side under properties and change him to be number 4. Thing is, when you add 2 assistants, they will appear on the same project because right now we have 2. They will appear on different sides of the project. So one
Hello and welcome.
will come from this side and the other one from the other side. We've used it and we've seen it used. We can't add more than 2. They won't
Today we will
display.
talk about the solar system.
Sometimes with like a female or a male assistant and coming from different parts of the project, explaining different things, you are free to use multiple. So again, in order to select the assistant, you select the speech, the resource we added to the project, and then on the right-hand side under properties, we go and choose the assistant we want. And here we have the other assistant that we added. Auto just adds the main assistant, the first assistant in the project. Now, if we go back, maybe you don't have an animation to add. We'll just, let's delete him, or actually let's change inside him now. So I maybe have one photo. You can also add assistants as files, any types of photos, but we recommend that they have a transparent background and that they are quite small, around 300 pixels maybe, so it looks good. I actually have a transparent image that I've prepared that I've searched for beforehand. So you have a little assistant here. He is static. I'm going to move the speech bubble so that it makes sense. It's just an image, but it's transparent. Its background is transparent. I'm going to remove the speaking animation. I don't have an animation for this. It's just a picture with a transparent background. I'm going to go back to my project. And instead of the assistant that is in LIVRESQ, again, I'll select the first one. And I'll change him to my little static picture. And when I open the
Hello and
project,
welcome.
my assistant is now the picture that I added. The other assistant will appear on the other side. So basically you can add, we've even seen teachers that add pictures of themselves. We recommend a transparent background, but it's not a must. It looks the best if you have a transparent background, but essentially any picture you want to add is good. Our recommendation is to use a smaller picture though, otherwise it will cover a lot of the project and it won't really make sense. So again, in order to change the character of the assistant, you go inside the project, you can add more assistants. If you double click, you can change the character to anything you want. So this was one way to guide the student. The other way is more, well, less interactive actually, more straightforward in a way, and it's called a barrier. Now, a barrier can be added again from the content side. So from the left, we can just drag a barrier to our lesson. It is meant to be added after interactive content. And what it does is it doesn't allow the student to move on unless they interact with the content. So right now, I've added the barrier. It's always going to be between two rows. I've added the barrier under this gallery. If I click it once, under properties, I can edit different things about the barrier. Under reason, these are the two most important options because I can actually write reasons, for instance, why the student cannot move on inside the lesson. So under reason, I'm going to say, please view all images to move on. And then the continuation is what happens when the button is activated. So once the student has finished viewing all the pictures, all the images in the gallery, they will be able to continue. And this is the continue button that will appear once they finish interacting. So if I select, for instance, these elements just to preview them, maybe the title as well, we'll view just the selection. So right now, I've written the message, preview all images to move on, which means that unless I look at the entire contents of the gallery, the button will not activate. Now the button is activated. I can press continue and I can see the rest of the content. So the barrier, really straightforward, will always work between rows. Wherever I want to place it, it will always be placed between two rows. And we recommend it, or the way it is meant to be used, is after an interactive resource. And essentially what it will do is it will stop the student from moving on with the lesson unless they interact with that content. So unless they finish seeing a video, unless they look at all the images, unless they answer the questions in a quiz. These are the two main ways, either using an avatar, using a virtual assistant that will guide the student every step of the way, or using a barrier placed after interactive resources in order to stop the student from moving on unless they finish interacting with content. There's actually a third way, which is sort of a little bit more subtle. If I delete this barrier, I can also stop the progress of the student if I make all of my interactive or any interactive resource inside my project behave as barrier. If I select any element inside a page, then I'll see properties, just as we did for the avatars or for the virtual assistants, just as we did for the barrier. Now, if, for instance, I select again my image gallery, I can see a few properties here. This is not the place where you edit the image gallery. You double click in order to enter the edit mode for the image gallery. But if you single click it, then you've selected it and you can see a few of its properties. And we have a tick here that we can use called behave as barrier. So instead of adding the physical barrier to our course, we can make this resource behave as a barrier, which means that the lesson or the rest of the lesson won't show unless the student interacts with the content. So again, I've selected these 3 rows. I can preview them using this button up here. So this button allows me to preview the entire lesson. If I want to preview a selection, if I select multiple elements, then I will use the preview button up here. So right now, everything stops after this gallery. I can see what's going on. And because I didn't add a physical barrier, unless you tell your student that they need to interact, or unless it comes natural to them, they might get stuck here and think this was the entire lesson. That's why we generally recommend adding the actual barrier and writing the little message. But if you think it's enough to tick on an interactive resource, ask it to behave as barrier, then simple as that. I finished looking through all the images and the rest of my content appeared below. So this resource essentially behaved as a barrier. That's why the option is there. And this is what happens once you tick it. You're asking a resource to behave as barrier. If you don't want to do this, and if you want to make it more, if you want to explain it more foolproof, if you will, then you can just add the barrier, write the reason, view all images, write the continuation, the text for the button once the student finishes everything, and then they will need to press the button and the rest of the lesson will show up. So these are the 3 ways in which to add, to sort of guide the student through the lesson, or to restrict progress in a way. It doesn't sound very friendly when we say restrict progress, but so that's why we keep using the guiding the students word, this phrase. But essentially, and this is actually why I started with the virtual assistant, because the virtual assistant actually guides the student step by step. You can provide it, you can add it on any resource the way it makes sense to you, so that you can sort of hold the student by the hand throughout the lesson and add information, add explanations in the same way that you would do in a classroom. Whereas with a barrier, you're just making sure that they are interacting with the content, whether you're using a physical barrier or whether you are selecting an interactive resource. And on all interactive resources, you have this option to make that resource behave as barrier. Essentially, this is it. And according to the way you want to organize your lesson, these tools can be used in multiple ways. In the courses we create, generally corporate courses, we always use the avatar to guide and explain to the students. This is very friendly, especially from a UDL perspective, because you sort of cater to multiple types of learners. Maybe some students are auditory, and then you can generate voices and have an audio guide. We also leave the text of the avatar always on the screen, because maybe other students are visual or they're not able to listen at that moment. So it really allows you to cater to different needs and different types of learners. Now, please let me know whether you're on Facebook or in Zoom if you have any questions. If you want me to maybe show something again or repeat anything, I'm here for you. Again, if you're watching us, if you're not watching us live, you can leave a comment with your questions and we'll get back to you. And if everything was clear, Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope this was useful. It takes a little bit of practice, but courses with avatars tend to be a lot more interactive and friendlier to students, and friendlier actually to all users or to anyone you want to show your courses to. It's really fun, even if you use your voice, even if you don't generate voices for the avatar. They can add a really personal sort of element to your lesson. And again, barriers are also very, very useful in order to make sure that your student goes through everything that you've added inside your lesson. Thank you so much for your attention. We are here every 2 weeks on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Central European time, sorry. So if you have questions or if you want to join us again, you can catch us on Facebook and on Zoom. And we will see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening or any other part of the day, depending on where you are. Thank you so much.